A few months ago, so many of us found ourselves in a completely transformed country, and the quarantine took into effect, and life has changed so much. And for me, as a resident in Providence, I would go on walks, but what changed for me was when you'd go around seeing walks at night or in the evening, you just realize how quiet it was and how different life feels in an urban environment without the people in it. And to not see people in parks was almost eerie, but I think one thing I saw that was the silver lining in everything was the fact that things were cleaner. There wasn't so much pollution and trash around the city that I would normally see. And I started reading articles about the world changing, that in Venice for the first time you could see through the bottom of the canals and there were swans returning. Beijing and Los Angeles had the cleanest air. And I know it wasn't just these major cities. Little things like this was happening all over the US and the world. And Providence, the same thing. I noticed things are quieter and there was more animal life. But for me, this felt like almost like a big reset button. It felt like I had a chance to reappreciate what space I had in front of me and everyone else who, because many of us here live in apartments and we're told to quarantine, getting outside meant so much to us, and those parks are so precious. And it made me realize how important it is to have clean environments for the people all around us, and that everyone deserves that space. And so I thought, what could I do to spend time, because I wanted to keep exercising and I wanted to maybe play some role in keeping my parks and urban areas clean in Providence. So I'd say about 2 months ago, I started bringing some reusable grocery bags down to the the water. I was at Gano Park and I saw um, trash along the river, and I thought, oh, this will be nice. I have time, and I've been furloughed myself, so I have time to pick up trash. And I thought the weather's getting nice, and so I started bringing a bag or two, and I filled them up, and then I would throw it away, and then I thought, all right, so tomorrow I'll work a little bit further, and I'll make a little bit more progress, and I'll just start picking it up. And one thing led to another, and weeks went by, and I thought, this is really nice, and I'm noticing the changes, and people have noticed changes, and I feel like it feels really good to pick up this trash and knowing that it's not going into the Seekonk River, which then feeds into the Narragansett Bay into the ocean. It's nice knowing that as just one person, I can help out and do something that requires very little of me and makes a positive impact for everyone who lives in my community. And so 2 weeks ago, I started to do this, but with hopes of potentially raising some money, because I'm going to grad school in the fall. I am going to Cornell University to do a master's degree in public horticulture leadership. I'm really passionate about green spaces, and I've loved gardening since I was a child. It's always been my passion, and I really want to go into education, outreach, and coordination and interpretation, and therefore my goal is to teach people about the environment, teach people about horticulture and the benefits of urban spaces, and why gardening can be beneficial for everyone involved. So I thought, what better way to make awareness of these issues than to come up with some kind of way to collect money to help me fund my graduate program and yet also benefit the city at the same time. And so I set aside a goal for the remainder of my days living in Providence, which will be until the end of July. I thought, I think I'm going to try to get about 30 pounds to 40 pounds of trash pickup a day. That equates to about 4 trash bags. Now, my goal was to hit 2,000 pounds collected. And the reason I chose that goal is because I thought that's 200 trash bags And for me, it feels like that's an incredible amount of waste to pull out of the water, which my thought is once it's in the water, it's essentially going to be there forever. So if you can prevent it from going in the first place, that's saving so much more pollution from going into the ocean or the bay, etc. And so I set aside between my goals of work jobs I can do and doing this, spending time on this, that is my goal, and I want to leave some kind of impact on the city of Providence where I've lived for the past 2 years, and therefore I can give something back to the people who live here and appreciate the same places I appreciate really well. And it's been going really good so far. I've had a lot of nice feedback, and I had a woman named Andrea come and help me one day, and she's helped me now 3 times, and she really enjoys it too. So she's been picking up trash right alongside me, and people have been really supportive and appreciative. So hopefully we'll continue. And I'm just trying to commit to something and show that, hey, if we all reduce our litter, or if we can just each pick up 2, 3 pieces, even if it's not ours, that we can essentially keep this city really clean for everyone and save the bay, which is so important in Providence. The Narragansett Bay is a huge part of the state, and the ecology of the bay is very sensitive to pollution. And it's paramount that we protect it for future generations. There's issues such as global warming that could cause the bay to rise, and obviously picking up trash isn't going to help with that per se, but certainly it's just a part of the bigger picture here, and I want to be a solution and a part of that answer. And this is why I'm trying to do this, and I've never done anything like this before. I've never taken on a project or initiative like this, so I'm kind of figuring out as it goes and just taking it day by day at a time and keeping on track with the goal. But I'm confident that I will hit that by the end of July. And anybody who wants to support it, I will be there pretty much every day. And I have biodegradable trash bags if anybody wants to join. I'm happy to encourage it and let people know where I'm going to be. And yes, and I continue to thank everyone who has supported me and has shown me kindness.
What is your studying right now?
What am I studying?
Yeah.
I'm not currently in school.
Oh, so what have you done in the last 2 years that you've been in Providence?
I've been working at a landscape design company, and I've been educating and training gardeners for a private company.
And what's your degree in?
My degree is actually in finance.
Ah.
I graduated in 2011, and since then I've completely changed my career. I started off working at a nursery, and then I moved to London, trained in horticulture there, and I came back to the US, moved to the Philadelphia region, studied at Longwood Gardens for 2 years, and got a formal education in horticulture. From there, I moved to Jerusalem, Israel for 6 months, and I worked as an intern at their nursery, and I helped collect rare seeds and propagated these seeds for the nursery to then help preserve these precious plant species in Israel for the seed bank. So I've had a multitude of experiences ranging from horticulture to ecology, and I have found the more time I spend, the more I realize how precious the land we have is because of degradation of soil and pressure on green spaces to deliver a lot for very many people with population density and population of the world growing. So we all have a role to play, and in the 9 years I've been pursuing horticulture, I've learned a great deal about the importance of gardening, whether it's ornamental or with vegetables, and agriculture is incredibly important for the well-being of humans and the joy and solace it brings to people as a form of therapy, whether it's physical therapy or mental. The mental cognitive benefits of gardening are incredibly important, and it's why I love being outside and why I love gardening and teaching gardening, because it's been a huge help for me as someone who struggles with depression and anxiety. I found it's a way to support myself, and it's changed my life, and it continues to, and I'm confident it will for the rest of my life. And I encourage everyone to spend time outdoors and appreciate what you have.
Why do you need to have a graduate degree?
The reason I need to have a graduate degree is because I don't have enough experience in education. My experience in education has been through the last 2 years of work, but I want a more formal educational experience at Cornell. Cornell University is a great university because it is a leader in horticulture training in the US, and I really am excited to gain expertise from my colleagues and professors there about how to become an education coordinator for adults. And that's a career goal of mine, and I hope to then share that expertise in my professional career and development after the program.
You brought up leadership earlier. What was that about?
Leadership in reference to the fact that when you're training gardeners or you're training anyone who's interested in horticulture, it's important that you have leaders who have had the skill set to be able to deliver the essential knowledge that is required in horticulture, whether it be growing conditions or growing plants in the right place, right plant, right place type of situation. A lot of different things we do horticulture for. Sometimes it's purely for aesthetics, sometimes it's for the benefits of working in a garden, but having the leadership skill set to invite people into those classes and courses I'd like to teach is incredibly important. And leadership skills and training are something that I can always improve on. It's something I'd like to gain more experience in.
What do you think is an objective definition of what leadership is?
That's a good question. I would say someone who has a mastery of a skill, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be an expert all the time. Someone who is willing to learn and take initiative and take planning into a part of what it means to think about when you're designing a course and training adults. What can you get out of this? What can they get out of this? And will we make the world a better place? Can we make gardening a benefit for everyone who we involve with it? And I think that being a leader is, it's an all-encompassing experience. It's something that you don't have to be born with it, and I don't think I am, but I think it's having confidence in what you want to achieve. And I feel like as I've gotten older, going from when I graduated college at 21 to now being 30, I see my role a bit more clearly in what I want to achieve in a career. And I think that's why I'm in a better position now to be a leader, because horticulture is my focus, and I want to share my passion and knowledge with other people who also want to explore the art of horticulture and all that it can do for them.
I would like to present this to you and see what you think.
I love it.
Once in a while, on a day with good weather in Providence, people see a bunch of bicycle riders racing across the town mainly for fun. They may be the so-called ride-out group. which is organized earlier on social media. Many refer to them simply as a bicycle gang. On the very last summer day of 2019, a bicycle gang was riding south on 3rd Street towards Brown University. People could not tell who the leader was. Are leaders the ones who ride in front of the pack? Suddenly, the bicycle gang changed its direction and went elsewhere. Those who were in front kept on riding without realizing that they are not truly the leader. You can see 4 of them as they appear in view. Here they come. On the other side of the traffic is the first bicycle rider on green wheels. To his left is a shirtless rider. Next is a low rider. Here comes one with a red jacket on his back. You will see them 4 reverse their direction in a minute. There they are again. The red jacket goes north. The green wheels and the shirtless chase after the red jacket. Not far behind is the low rider. Apparently, these 4 are not the leader of their pack. The history of the pack is written apparently not by those in front of the pack. To be a leader, you must not go too far ahead that what you do is not part of what your people do in their history. Here is a thumbnail definition from Thomas Lang. Leadership, that means ahead of history. To be a leader, you must be part of the first group writing the history for your people. To be a leader, you must be part of the first group creating the history for your people. To be a leader of any group, you must spread inspiration and do whatever it takes to be in front, but also part of its history.
hypnotic that was watching him like move like he's on waves. And was that a drone that followed him that you
Yes.
did? So impressive. It was really good. I love that footage.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. He was very good. I think I've seen him before. Yeah.
He's a proud student.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen him around because there's always this one guy who's really good on a skateboard. He can really like turn. He's pretty good. So maybe that was him. Yeah.
So how did that did this video make any difference to your view of what leadership is?
Yeah, I think certainly standing out from a pack is really important, and doing things that people aren't willing to do a lot of times is something that I look for when I see someone. When I think of someone who's a leader, someone who's willing to do work that may appear to be beneath them, that shouldn't be or isn't, and someone who's willing to stand up and do something they feel really strongly about, and not caring what other people think too much, because people who are leaders tend to ask for help and know who to ask help from, but they also trust their instincts, and when they believe something's worth fighting for or a cause is worth supporting, then they go for it. And
I think you are talking about one style of leadership, meaning leadership by example, but that is not the definition of leadership. Because
right.
leadership, the objective definition of leadership should be applicable in every context, regardless of your style of leadership.
Right.
And so so far you're describing a style of leadership rather than talking about the definition of leadership. Am I making any sense?
No, you are. It's difficult to think about leadership.
And that's why this video is trying to convey that message.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership, that means ahead of history, but not too far ahead of history, because if you are too far ahead of history, you are a scientist, not a leader, like Tesla.
Yeah.
So and leaders are not the ones that go in front, like those 4 bicycle riders. Just because you are in front of the pack, it doesn't mean that you are a leader. And leaders may or may not do anything. I mean, the more you work, the more chances you do leadership wrongly. So leadership is not about working, but it's about expression, the vision based on which your group creates the history of the group according to. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important, and I think that's an interesting point, thinking about the point in time of history and the causes you're considering to be fighting or worth supporting. And that's why I think the best leaders are people who often encourage other people behind them. It's not always having to be in the front, as you say, and great leaders are the ones who support people who are working for them and building them up and helping them become leaders themselves. And
so now, could you come up with an example of a leader in your life or in history that would demonstrate a definition of leadership as expressed in this video, or using any other definition of leadership?
Sure. Let me think.
A practical example of a leader based on a particular definition of leadership. And you can use this definition ahead of history or another definition, doesn't matter. Because you're into leadership in the near future, so I thought throwing this out on the table would be interesting.
Sure. Yeah. It's tough. I wish I would have came prepared a little bit.
Well, this is how we want to measure the level authenticity that you are expressing.
Sure.
No preparation.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. So, let me give an example as me as a leader in my last role. Now, I basically, my job as a my job as an educator and trainer of gardeners was to essentially work with them side by side and do the same work as them and just empowering them with knowledge. So when you'd encounter different plants and growing conditions that are unfamiliar to someone who is a gardener, and you're showing them what to do and how to think of this plant as a living thing and what care it needs, you're essentially giving them a skill to understand that all these plants were unique and different, and essentially by sharing my knowledge with them, they're not going to forget it because we're working with that side by side, and therefore they're going to take that knowledge away with them and they are going to then share it with others. So
that makes you a teacher, not a leader.
You're right, I guess, but in a sense you're leading by example because you're trying to...
Once again, that is what teachers do. They lead by examples, but the purpose is teaching.
Yeah.
So that is an example of effective teaching, not an example of effective leadership.
This is tough.
Thank you. That's the reason why most people are not leaders. Not because they don't want to become a leader, but because they don't understand what leadership truly means.
Right.
Would you like to try again and pick another example? In history or in real life, doesn't matter. But we would like to understand your authentic understanding of leadership.
Okay. Gandhi in India.
Before you say anything, I would like to point out to you that you are a leader by example at the park picking up grass, not on the walk path, but in between the rocks. You are helping to create a new history for that park so that people can follow, and after you leave the city, people will follow your footsteps and pay attention to trash hidden away but more dangerous to the waterway than the ones that they see on the walkway.
Yeah, I hope so.
So that's leadership by example. You are a leader by example right there. And so basically no one's done that before at that park in that way. So you created history, but that is leadership by example, a style of leadership. The reason why that makes you a leader is because you created a vision such that other people can follow you to create a history of a new way of keeping the park clean. And you have a follower, so clearly you're a leader. But we would like to know if you can come up with an example of a leader in history or in your life that is not you directly.
Absolutely. Someone who I really admire, who I think is a great example of a leader, is Gandhi. In India, Gandhi was someone who had ties to India. He was trained in law in the UK, in England at the time, and came back to his country. He didn't have to. He could have practiced law in the UK and had a great successful career. But he realized that people in his country were being oppressed, and so he stood up And what made him unique as a leader is that he didn't recruit people to follow him. He led by example because he preached nonviolence and it inspired people. He transformed an entire nation of millions of people through his actions, and people were inspired by what he did, and they followed him because they considered him to be a leader. And eventually, he gained, through his marches and practice of nonviolence, he eventually led a revolution that was peaceful, and the Indian country became independent. He was a historical figure that I mentioned because oftentimes revolutions are bloody and they are painful, but Gandhi, through his meditations and practices, realized that nonviolence could be just as effective as violence, and so therefore people learned from him, and his ways were practiced for many people, including one of his most famous followers was Martin Luther King Jr., who also preached nonviolence. So through the course of history, Gandhi will always be remembered for his methods of protest in a form of nonviolence, and changed how leadership can be dealt with and inspired how to inspire people in that sense.
And thank you for your leadership at the park near home.
Thanks.
Very good. And what's your name?
Brandon.
Brandon what?
George.
And how can we contact you?
You can contact me on Instagram. My Instagram name is Wyeth, WYETHAND, Willow, WILLOW. And my email, if you'd like to email me, is Brandon, BRANDON, T, George, GEORGE, 89 at gmail.com.
And I understand that you have a GoFundMe thingy. Would you like to let us know where to support you for your leadership in keeping the waterway clean, keeping the park clean in wherever you live?
Absolutely. So my GoFundMe campaign is called Cleaning Up Providence and Saving for Grad School. So if you search GoFundMe and type in those phrases, you'll find me. And again, I want to thank anybody who has helped encourage me and cleaned up along with me, and all the friendly people who have said hello to me while I pick up trash and have donated. I am really appreciative of your effort, and I'm very grateful for your contribution.
What's the keywords again to search at GoFundMe?
Search it's called Cleaning Up Providence and Saving for Grad School. That's the title of my campaign. And if you search on GoFundMe, you'll find it.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nick.